Harley and Joker are back at it again. This time, they robbed a bank and causing chaos all over Gotham City. While being chased by the police, Harley stops by to get some beer. But things didn't go according to plan. Well, Harley gets into a fight in the bar. And the next thing you know, Harley is fighting Katana. Meanwhile, Joker is forced to run from the police. Harley and Katana fight for a while. But in the end, Katana knocks Harley out. Thus, she gets captured. Meanwhile, Amanda Waller is trying to open a portal to another world, and she succeeds. Almost half a year later, Amanda approaches Harley and others. Thus, Amanda forcefully sends them to another world using the portal. As a result, Harley finds herself on a chopper. By the way, for this mission, Amanda has prepared a Suicide Squad with Harley, Deadshot, Clayface, Peacemaker, and King Shark. Amanda informs them that they need to work together with her subordinate, Adam, and carry out their mission. In exchange, their sentences will be reduced. Amanda also informs the Suicide Squad that they have implanted bombs in their necks. In other words, if they don't follow her orders, she will eliminate them. Furthermore, if they are away from the radio signal for more than 72 hours, then the bomb will explode automatically. The Suicide Squad enters another world on a chopper. However, their entry wasn't very comfortable. Well, the chopper crashes as soon as they enter, and Adam dies in the crash. However, 4 of them manage to free themselves. Meanwhile, not far away, a battle between monsters and humans is taking place. After witnessing the otherworldly stuff, Clayface speculates that it might be an expensive movie set. By the way, Clayface is a not-so-popular actor. But then, 4 of them get surrounded by the monsters. Clayface still thinks they are on a movie set or something, but Deadshot implies that whatever is happening is real. Meanwhile, Harley starts showing her crazy side as they get surrounded by the monsters. With that being said, King Shark also breaks out and starts eating the monsters. After a while, Deadshot manages to take down the boss of those monsters, thus ending the battle. A soldier named Cecil then confronts the Suicide Squad. After witnessing King Shark, Cecil uses magic and prepares to fight them. After understanding the situation, Clayface immediately tells his comrades that they are in another world. He also tries to negotiate with Cecil, but things didn't go according to plan. Since Cecil didn't understand anything Clayface was trying to say, the Suicide Squad ends up in prison. We can see many starving peasants as Queen Eldora passes by. After a while, Queen Eldora holds a council meeting. Since the kingdom's forces have won against the monsters, some idiotic nobles call for a celebration. In reality, the kingdom only won because the Suicide Squad defeated those monsters. However, Queen Eldora silences them all and tells them that they can only call it a victory after they destroy all their enemies. Cecil then shows the Suicide Squad to the Queen, but Eldora immediately tells him to forget about them. Cecil still tries to convince the Queen to have the Suicide Squad join their forces, but she immediately discards his opinion. Something tells me that this woman is up to no good. Then Princess Fiona tries to convince her mother, but Eldora shuts her down. Unlike her mother, Fiona is a kind and honest person, but she is also very timid. By the way, Fiona for some reason believes that the Suicide Squad can help them save the kingdom. Thus, she asks Cecil for a favor. Meanwhile, the Suicide Squad gets started with their usual shenanigans. After a while, Peacemaker tells them that they have 60 hours before the bombs in their necks explode. In other words, they need to get back to the chopper as soon as possible. After that, Clayface manages to get out of the prison cell. But then, Clayface tries to escape alone. This leads others to call the guards on him. As a result, he gets captured. While eating, the Suicide Squad accidentally sits at the table where the prison boss usually sits, and the next thing you know, both parties get into a fight. During their fight, Harley manages to knock out the boss. As a result, the guards catch them using magic wands and put them inside a disciplinary cell. Interestingly, the Suicide Squad meets Rick Flag, a subordinate of Amanda, inside that disciplinary cell. Rick explains everything to them. He implies that Harley's group is not the first group who got sent to this world. In other words, Amanda has already sent a Suicide Squad before them. By the way, Amanda's goal is to secure water and natural resources from this world. After that, King Shark finally wakes up. Since King Shark was hungry, Rick had to stop him by calling his real name. Rick then manages to convince him to break the door. As a result, they manage to get out of the cell. Clayface then decides to set all prisoners free in order to cause chaos. As usual, the Suicide Squad starts their usual shenanigans. Thus, it causes an all-out brawl inside the prison. The prisoners continue to beat the guards. Meanwhile, Princess Fiona, along with Cecil, heads to the prison to talk to the Suicide Squad. But when they arrive, they realize that the prison is in chaos, and the Suicide Squad has taken control of the prison. After a while, Cecil arrives at the gate of the prison, but he is confronted by the Suicide Squad. Meanwhile, Clayface recalls that this is the man who sent them to prison. Thus, they begin to mock Cecil. Although Cecil can't understand them, he realizes they're mocking him. As a result, Cecil throws his sword at Harley, but King Shark comes in between and swallows the sword. In response, Cecil uses his bracelet and calls his sword back. As a result, King Shark gets a huge wound in his stomach. However, King Shark's wound heals instantly because of his super healing ability. Thus, the Suicide Squad prepares to fight, but suddenly Rick Flag steps in. He then urges everyone to stop. He also implies that fighting the Knights would turn the entire country against them, making it impossible to return to the chopper and reset their bomb timers. Rick then reveals that he learned the language of this world. Thus, he decides to negotiate with Cecil. He implies that he doesn't want to fight. Funnily enough, Cecil understands him, but the phrases Rick learned in prison are full of insults. Thus, it makes Cecil very upset. He prepares to attack, but then he remembers that Fiona personally asked for his help. As a result, he decides to take them to Queen Aldora. By the way, Fiona seems interested in Harley. Since they couldn't understand each other, Queen Aldora decides to cast a spell that allowed them to communicate using the language of the world. Thus, Rick respectfully approaches the Queen and expresses his desire to make an offer that will greatly benefit their kingdom. In exchange, he asks for their freedom. However, they remind him that he is still a prisoner and has no right to make an offer. Rick still insists that he has important information that can help them win the war. He reveals that the Empire replaced all its top officers with humans from their world. In other words, the Suicide Squad Rick came with. Meanwhile, as usual, the Suicide Squad starts their shenanigans. But before Rick can explain, the Suicide Squad starts blaming everything on Rick. Well, Rick led the previous Suicide Squad to this world, but due to his incompetence, they betrayed Rick and joined the Empire. As her soldiers draw their swords on them, Peacemaker steps up and offers to fight on any battlefield to make things right. Meanwhile, the Queen uses her magic to restrain Rick and orders her troops to take him away. She gives a stern warning to the Suicide Squad: keep Peacemaker's promise or Rick pays the price. Before leaving, Rick reminds the squad that he's the only one who can reset their bomb timers. In other words, if he dies, they will never make it to the chopper and lose their heads too. Harley then tells the Queen that they will need their weapons and gear back. After the preparation, they head to the battlefield. After that, we can see Kingdom soldiers are trying to seize a fortress from the Empire's control. Clayface proposes to lend them a hand, but Deadshot disagrees. He then reminds them that Cecil had earlier advised them to stay out of their fight. Harley informs the squad that Cecil and others are fighting brainwashed animals. After pondering about obedient animals, Deadshot realizes that the commander is probably a friend from his prison days, so he suggests going inside the fortress to talk things out. Thus, they go to the side of the fortress. Thanks to Clayface, they manage to get inside. After that, Deadshot bumps into Ratcatcher and warmly greets him. Meanwhile, Ratcatcher is taken aback to see Deadshot. Deadshot also calls him his buddy. However, Ratcatcher isn't exactly thrilled to see him. The backstory is that Ratcatcher was often bullied by other prisoners for being a weirdo during his time in prison. Deadshot, in an attempt to help, ended up making Ratcatcher feel worse without realizing it. Deadshot thought he was being friendly, but his constant meddling only made the situation worse. With that being said, Ratcatcher set those wolves on Deadshot and others. As a result, a fight between both parties breaks out. Peacemaker realizes they're outnumbered. Thus, he decides that the best course of action is to eliminate Ratcatcher. He takes a shot at Ratcatcher, but one of Ratcatcher's wolves jumps in and shields him. Clayface then spots huge water tanks overhead. Deadshot takes a shot at them, causing a flood on the roof. With the ground now wet, Clayface uses his powers to control the walls of the fortress. This makes the wolves lose their footing and fall. Peacemaker tries to shoot Ratcatcher again, but out of nowhere, Katana shows up to protect him. Seeing Katana, Harley can't hide her anger. By the way, as a result of their fight, the whole fortress falls to the ground. Needless to say, Cecil is very angry at the Suicide Squad. As Queen Eldora witnesses the Suicide Squad destroying the fortress, the squad is taken back to the prison. Meanwhile, Rick begins to argue with Deadshot for destroying the fortress. After a while, Peacemaker informs everyone that they've only got 12 hours left before the bombs explode, and they need to figure out a way to escape soon. Princess Fiona comes to meet the squad. As always, Clayface begins to flirt with her right away. However, Deadshot interrupts him to ask about their release. Fiona apologizes, hinting that she doesn't know the answer. Once again, Harley catches Fiona staring at her. "You seem to be interested in me. You've been watching me since yesterday, haven't you?" Harley asks. Cecil then comes to get the squad, as the Queen has summoned them. Then we see a flashback where Fiona is playing with some of her commoner friends while disguised as a commoner. Upon inquiry, Fiona learns that her friends are having a tough time as things are getting too expensive because of the war. The moment she arrives at the royal palace, her mom lectures her. She warns her about heading to the city and playing with the commoners. Queen Eldora makes it clear to her that, as royalty, her duty is to put an end to the war. Soon after, she ends up witnessing her friends die because of this war. As soon as the council meeting starts, they see an army of hooded beastmen approaching their kingdom. Needless to say, the council members are terrified after seeing the Imperial Army. During the meeting, Harley interrupts them, questioning why they are still in cuffs when they are supposed to be free. Queen Eldora, however, dismisses her statement, given that they had already destroyed the fortress. She then questions Rick about the situation. In response, Rick requests her to explain the sequence of events leading up to this war. So, here's the thing. The kingdom has been at war with the Imperial Army for decades, and almost 6 months ago the beastmen and elves decided to join the Empire. That's when things started going south for the kingdom. Without wasting a moment, Clayface and Deadshot insinuate that it's no wonder the beastmen and elves have turned their backs on the kingdom. They believe the kingdom doesn't really know how to treat people properly. Anyway, Rick informs Queen Eldora that Ratcatcher is the reason why the beastmen joined the Empire. He also tells her that Ratcatcher has the ability to control animals. Meanwhile, Deadshot can't figure out why he didn't just blow up his teammates when they betrayed him. Rick explains that, for some reason, the bombs were defused, which is probably why Amanda used a timer this time. Queen Eldora asks Rick if he has a plan on how to deal with Ratcatcher, but Rick is clueless. As a result, she decides to send them back to prison for being useless. But suddenly, Harley remembers what Joker taught her about hunting rats. Thus, she explains her plan. In order to make the plan work, Rick asks the Queen to provide some of her soldiers. However, the council members start insulting him. Then, out of nowhere, Harley proposes that she knows some people who would be more than ready to fight. After a while, they set up camp near the destroyed fortress. When the prisoners arrive, Harley greets their leader. By the way, the troops Harley talked about earlier are none other than the prison inmates. After that, Harley begins to address the prisoners. Meanwhile, some of them even address her as boss. On the other hand, they are also surprised to hear that Harley can speak their language. Harley then tells them that if they can fight hard and win the next battle, they'll be released from prison. Needless to say, they become very excited. With that being said, they prepare to battle Ratcatcher's army. In the midst of this, Cecil strikes up a conversation with Rick, questioning why he is leading a team full of criminals. Rick simply replies that he is just following orders. Meanwhile, Clayface returns after putting up barriers for their upcoming battle. Then Cecil suddenly realizes that Deadshot is nowhere to be found. Despite asking the squad, he doesn't get a straight answer. Meanwhile, Deadshot is up on the roof, busy with his work. As Ratcatcher and his army approach them, Cecil gets ready to fight them. Then Cecil tries to convince the squad to take command of prisoners. However, Harley and the rest of the team decline. Well, they believe that they're not needed in the battle. This prompts Cecil to curse them in irritation. Anyway, as Ratcatcher arrives in front of the soldiers, he is surprised by the barriers and the prisoners, but he laughs and implies that this is not nearly enough to defeat his army. Thus, with a tap of his magic staff, his army marches forward. Meanwhile, soldiers of the kingdom have already given up after seeing Ratcatcher's army, but Cecil manages to get them to stay focused. Ratcatcher also declares that he will get his revenge on Deadshot. At the same time, Deadshot takes his shot at Ratcatcher. Ratcatcher laughs as he thinks Deadshot missed his shot, but little did he realize that Deadshot destroyed his magical staff. As a result, his army stops moving. When he realizes that his staff is broken, it is already too late. His army comes to their senses and eliminates Ratcatcher. Meanwhile, Cecil is confused by the sudden turn of events. After a while, Queen Aldora learns about the kingdom's victory, but for some reason, she is not happy about it. Fiona is also confused. The Suicide Squad finally reaches the portal, but they realize that the portal is far from their reach. In a state of panic, Deadshot suggests climbing onto King Shark to reach the portal. As they are arguing, the bombs in their necks start flashing. Needless to say, Deadshot starts freaking out. Meanwhile, Peacemaker tells them that they have a few seconds left until the bombs go off. But then, to their surprise, the bombs receive a signal from the portal, and as a result, the timers get reset. Rick then reminds them that the only reason Amanda didn't eliminate them is because she still thinks they might be able to complete their mission. Following that, the squad joins forces with the kingdom's army to take down the invading empire. They fought on various battlefields and even managed to reclaim the territory occupied by the empire. While fighting the imperial forces, Deadshot suddenly runs out of ammo, making him very frustrated. As a result, the Suicide Squad calls an emergency meeting to address the problem. Meanwhile, Harley is wasting bullets to make a heart on a rock. On the other hand, Cecil is relieved that Deadshot can't use his frightening weapons anymore. However, Clayface points out that since Harley and Peacemaker also use guns, the ammo shortage will seriously impact all of them. In response, Harley suggests that she doesn't need guns, and that she can just use a freaking frying pan to beat their enemies. Clayface implies that their idiotic squad won't be able to solve the problem, but then Rick comes up with a plan. He informs the squad that his original team didn't crash, so their chopper and supplies should still be there. Needless to say, Deadshot immediately gets fired up after hearing this. However, there's a catch. The chopper landed on a mountain on the west side, meaning it'll take a while to get there. Anyway, they decide to head back to the fortress for now. As they reach the fortress, Harley mentions she's really hungry. Then one of the fellow prisoners responds by saying they're throwing a dinner party and invites her to join. As they share drinks, Deadshot and Harley wonder if there's a special occasion. Then, the squad learns that the prisoners were given freedom and a place to live, in exchange for fighting on the front lines. As a result, Clayface starts to think the kingdom isn't so bad after all. Before leaving the fortress, Harley borrows a frying pan as her weapon. Thus, they finally head to the chopper to retrieve the supplies. After a while, they finally reach the mountain and start making their way up to the summit. But things become chaotic when they spot a dragon near the chopper. Well, a dragon is using the chopper as its nest. Deadshot tells them to bring a huge crossbow so that he can recreate a scene from Game of Thrones by slaying the dragon. Meanwhile, Clayface tries something new but gets mocked by everyone. As Clayface and Deadshot start fighting, the dragon decides to pay them a visit.
Run.
As a result, the dragon starts chasing them. As they continue to run, King Shark gets captured by the dragon. Meanwhile, Rick and Peacemaker decide to go to the chopper and retrieve the supplies. As they are confronted by the dragon, Harley decides to use the frying pan. In typical Harley Quinn fashion, she pulls off a really crazy counter.
Randy Orton in a place we've never seen him before. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out! Oh my God!
While being chased by the dragon, Deadshot tells Rick and Peacemaker to give him some weapons. Then Harley also heads to the chopper to find something. After looking for a while, she finds a rocket launcher. As Deadshot is being chased by the dragon, Harley gives him the rocket launcher. Meanwhile, Peacemaker manages to distract the dragon using its egg. With some help from Clayface, Deadshot manages to attack the dragon. With that, they manage to defeat the dragon. After that, Harley decides to take the egg from Peacemaker. Soon after, the egg hatches, and a baby dragon comes out. Thus, Harley unexpectedly becomes a mother to that baby dragon. Harley also names the dragon Arthur. While heading back, they realize something is burning. They rush to the fortress, but when they arrive, they see everything is burning. They also spot Thinker and Enchantress.